It's not the only camera that has it, but this does. And we're talking about, is this still worth it? And yes, it absolutely is. What's good, everybody? Today we're talking about the EOS R and whether or not I'd recommend it in 2023. Short story long, no. Long story short, absolutely I would. I've been using this since 2018, 2019, very shortly after it came out for professional photography. I've been using it on construction sites. This is weather sealed, which is a big reason why I got it, so the dust won't get in and like mess up the sensor. There's a lot of reasons why I'd recommend it, but let me go over the cons first, because at the end of the day, yes, absolutely I get it, but there are some things that are frustrating with this. The number one is, in no particular order, the touch bar is kind of useless. It gives you some different options and you can program it. I have like the left tap is like a histogram. You can like zoom in if you, there's very few options that you can use. I haven't found it very helpful, to be quite honest. I feel like it was kind of gimmicky. There's a lot of people that feel that way, so I wouldn't get it for that. Don't even think about it. They actually got rid of it for newer versions. So we also have a 4K crop on this sensor. So it is a full frame sensor, but when you go into 4K, it crops in, which is not the end of the world, but it does reduce some of your utility with it. Most of the stuff I shoot with is 1080. That's what my clients want. One thing that I wish that they did have on this is 2.7K. So 1080 oftentimes is a little too small. 4K is too much, especially the file sizes. But on my my GoPro or my Osmo Action, I have the option for 2.7K, and that's a good middle ground. I really like that. I wish that these would start implementing that, but they haven't, as far as I know, at least in the Canon line. If I'm mistaken, let me know, because I'd really like to know. We also don't have a thumbstick. What I do is I hit the screen here, and then you can see that it's moving around with me, right? So that's how I do it. I'll be shooting, and I'll just put my thumb down there, and there you go. I can kind of like autofocus that way. And you can use this little stick here, and it'll move around the autofocus point, but it's not as nice as the 3D stick, which they have brought back for newer designs. There's no depth of focus, or depth of field button on this. I don't really think there are on the other mirrorless lines for Canon anyway, but you can program that. So what I've done is the star key right here. You can program a lot of these buttons, which is really cool. You can reprogram them. So the star key I actually have as my depth of field key. And lastly, but I saved this for last because this is the most annoying thing about this, at least in my view and what I've been doing, is that if I want to switch this from video to photo, which happens all the time on this, hit mode, then hit info and switch it, and then this gives you your options, and then hit OK. So again, like, oh, okay, I'm done taking my video, and then I have to hit mode and info and then select whatever photography option that I have, and then hit OK. Now, usually I stand in manual. You can hit the record button automatically, and it will just start, I'm in photo mode right now. I hit record and it is recording. So I can record, but I can't go in manual mode. It'll do you can set it for different things programmed for like the ISOs and, I think like shutter priority, aperture priority, and whatnot. I almost always shoot in manual. So I really wish that they had changed that. Now, the newer ones, they all have the little switch that we've been used to. Most cameras have that photo video switch. It's up here. You just on, off, photo, video. Like it's so nice, and you just whoop, and I wish it had that. That's my biggest gripe about this. Now onto the pros. There's a lot of pros. It's fast, it's reliable. Like I said, it's weather sealed, and that's a big deal for the type of work that I do. This is an RF mount, which is all of Canon's mirrorless line, but you can get an adapter to get onto their EF lenses, which I don't even know how many EF lenses they have. They've been using them for years. They're at this point fairly cheap. Of course, if you go to the L series, if you go to the L series, you're going to be spending a lot of money, but that's their pro line. But if you already have EF lenses or you wanted to get this, start getting into the Canon line, you could get an adapter. Now, this right here is the standard Canon adapter. It's the RF to EF. There's no frills, nothing fancy. This thing costs, I think when I got it, it was like 150 bucks or 100 bucks or something. It's somewhere around that line. It was the cheapest option, and I always recommend get the Canon official, or if you're shooting Sony, get the Sony official. Nikon, get the Nikon official adapters. I know Viltrox and there's quite a few other companies that will do adapters, and they might be fine, but you don't always get the most efficient use. Sometimes you'll get some vignetting, or the autofocus is slower. At least in my mind, you don't want this thing to be the thing that ruins your expensive setup, right? So you have your expensive camera, and then you have your expensive lenses that are thousands, or they can be thousands and thousands of dollars. Don't let this, for the sake of $100, for the sake of $100, get the Canon basic one. But I really, really wish that I had gotten this one. This is the same thing, but it has a control ring. So that's one of the big things about the RF mount, is that the RF lenses, which this one happens to be, have these little dials on them, and they're programmable. You can do several different options. I always will put the program on ISO because I have shutter speed, aperture, and then ISO. Because I don't change the ISO very often, but sometimes I do need to tweak it. I need to go up from 100 to 125. Another really cool thing about this camera is that it has a lot of good increments for ISO. It's not just 100, 200, 400, 800. In the lower range, you can go up by smaller increments, which is very helpful when you just need a little bit of change. Like I said, this adapter has the control ring. So I can throw this guy on, put it on here, and then all my EF lenses can take advantage of this control ring. And dude, let me tell you, before I got the control ring for my EF lenses, the way that I was changing this was I would hit this multifunction button. There's a little guy right here. Boop, boop, boop. You can change that to do what you want. You can do this, and then it opens up several options. And so what I'd do is I would hit this little guy and then scroll over to ISO if I wasn't already on it. Then I would hit OK, and then I'd make the adjustment with this guy. And so it's not the end of the world, but every little bit slows you down. This thing, the control ring is so nice. It's really, but it is more expensive. I think this was 200 bucks. Oh, sorry. This was 200 bucks versus the $100 version. But I really wish that I had invested in it. The other thing, obviously, it's full frame. I love full frame. There's nothing wrong with crop sensor, but especially on a construction site, when I'm trying to get wider angles of view, especially, the 16 mil on a construction site, or hotel photography, like hotels and real estate, that 16 mil on a full frame, like you get a lot of visibility, the field of view. It's crazy. Crazy. I love it. We're not going over all the specs here. I do just want to go over my pros and cons. Audio monitoring, that's another big thing. When I am going to do video, which most of my video that I do where I would need audio monitoring is really for this. It's for you and me. It is really helpful when I am going to be doing recording. I have the microphone, and then I can just jack in a set of headphones and another jack here and just listen and say, oh yeah, the audio levels, I can see the audio levels are fine, what I think are fine on the indicator, but I want to be able to hear it. So that has come in really handy in a lot of cases. The last thing that I really like about this, there's a lot that I like about it, but this is kind of one of those standout things that not a lot of cameras do. Some do, some definitely have this, but because I'm so interested in that kind of weather sealing and protecting the sensor as much as I can, when this is off, if I take that off, do you see there's a little shutter screen. Okay, so that guy, get off my face. Can you guys see it? Hopefully you can see it. There's a little shutter screen in there. So the sensor is behind that. So if I need to, as long as it's off, if it's on, that shutter screen is going to stay up. You're going to see the sensor. If you saw that last little short that I did, don't ever do this. Don't ever do this, because that's the sensor I'm exposing under there. You'll know how important that is, right? You don't want the dust to get on there. So what I'll do, I need to change my lens out. I'll hit the off, and then that will go down, and I can take my time. I can have this up like this. I can be chatting with somebody. I can be fumbling for my lenses. I can change a battery. Why I'd change a battery while I have this open, I don't know, but I can do it, and it's not a big deal. And that's one of the best things about this. Again, it's not the only camera that has it, but this does. And we're talking about, is this still worth it? And yes, it absolutely is. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you know how to reach me. And until next time, be good to each other. That was like rapid fire. I think that might be good. I hope it's good. All right.